Oh, the posh, posh travelling life, the travelling life of me. Port out, starboard home. Posh with a capital P-O-S-H. Posh. Look at this, beautiful. Wouldn't have it any other way. So it's the morning of day 17. I've just left Molly's Ridge shelter about 20 minutes ago. I've just come across this weird piece of wood. It's obviously splintered off this tree here. So someone's cut it away so it could fall off. It's been cut off at the end there. But it's beautiful. It's huge. I don't know whether I can give you some scale. No. I'll put me in the picture. Don't know if I'm in the picture. So, this is typical Smokies weather. I was aware of this and was kind of ready for it. So we got to the shelter in good time yesterday, did just over 12 miles. Once we got in and settled, the heavens opened. It absolutely hammered down. There were thunderstorms and it was just, I mean, you couldn't see anything outside. It pelted down, so the shelter got very, very busy. Unfortunately, a few people still had to pitch their tent out in the heavy rain. They still seem strangely happy to do it, I don't know. But it was okay. The shelters are, I mean, ultimately they're positive, they're good. But I think I've spent, I don't know, 7-ish nights in shelters. And without exception, there's always snorers, people shifting around on really noisy sleep pads. So I'm not the heaviest of sleepers, so you get quite a disturbed night. But you get a very long night's sleep, but very disturbed. Like I actually fell asleep just after 7:30 last night. Unfortunately, I woke up thinking I'd slept really well, and it was like morning. It was 3 minutes past 11, so I had the whole night ahead of me. So yeah, quite a broken night. But you do get, overall, you do get a lot of sleep, but in sort of, you know, hour-and-a-half increments. But it's, I suppose, when it's wet like this, it's kind of important. So there you go. Today we're doing a bigger day. If everything goes to plan, we're planning on doing about 17 miles. We want to get to, I think, the third shelter. We're going to pass 2 today, because we want to give ourselves a better shout tomorrow at getting into Gatlinburg, where we'll get an overnight and get some laundry done and just get everything dry again. And then after that, we've 2 more days in the Smokies, and then we're out. And hopefully that's the worst of the weather dealt with once we get out of the Smokies. Okay, so I'll catch you later. So it's April 10th, day 18. I'm about an hour out of camp. I stayed at Derek Knob Shelter last night. Pulled up short. We only did about 12 point something yesterday. The trail, as you might have noticed on 1 or 2 of the videos, was just a swamp. So it was just pretty exhausting. Kicking your way through it, and your feet were getting sucked into the ground all the time. So I decided to stop at Derek Knob, which is the 12.3 mile point or something. And Audible followed suit, and he's just behind me somewhere. So today I'm heading for Mount Collins Shelter, which is about 13 miles. But on the way, I've got to get over the highest point of the AT, which is called Clingman's Dome. Clingman's Dome is just over 6,600 feet. Has a viewing platform on the top, so hopefully get some good video from up there. It's a beautiful morning. Yesterday was just a muddy mess. Previous day was an absolute washout. We had thunderstorms, and it hammered with rain. Thankfully I missed the worst of it. I just got to the shelter on time, but it did make an absolute mess of the trail. I'll show you the trail now is starting to dry out. It's still very slippery. That was kind of a big deal, trying to deal with sliding all over the place and sort of catching yourself all the time and A lot of people coming into camp just covered in mud and where they'd slipped, and one or two guys that had fallen and hurt themselves, and trying to deal with that, and you're miles from help. So great atmosphere around the camp last night. The shelter was quite full, pleasantly full. Some great characters there. There was probably about a dozen tents as well. So there was a little ad hoc game of bocce ball, which I'd never seen before, which is a bit of a laugh. So they kind of get all creative with how they throw these balls around the camp, and then everyone else has to try and get their ball to the same place and whatever. It's kind of funny. So it was a bit of a laugh. Yeah, so looking forward to getting up Clingman's Dome. Kind of learning as I go to sort of just calm my gait down a little bit. I tend to walk a little frantically in the morning, so I'm trying to train myself just to relax a little bit, because you get into the second half of the day and your sort of energy reserves that are close to your muscle groups are all kind of depleted, and it's purely because I've just walked that 10% too hard. So voices around somewhere. Still haven't seen any bears. I'd like to experience it, but maybe from a safe distance. Anyway, I'll catch you later. So this is the top of Clingman's Dome. Check this out. So I left my pack down there somewhere.
Cuidado, capacete. Espera, papita y Rafi.
So this is Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Really tacky town. It's kind of a vacation town. It's all this kind of tat. But hey, cheap motels, resupply points. Catch you later. So a bit of a wet one today. So it's April 12th. This is the morning of day 20. Yeah, it's not too cold, but it's very, very wet. Just a little bit of a reprieve with the rainfall. He said it's just about to start again. Okay, so the observant people amongst you might notice that every now and then I'll mention what my plans are for the next day or two, and then you might notice that that rarely actually comes to fruition because conditions change, circumstance change, whatever, people come up with better ideas and you end up doing different things. And that happened over the last sort of 36 hours. So 2 days ago, we went over Clingman's Dome, the highest point, and then it was another, I don't know, 6 or 7ish down to a shelter called Mount Collins. But Mount Collins shelter was, when I got to the little sign for it, it's like half a mile off the trail, and I'm like, do you know what? Knowing where I was, it was another 4.5 miles to get to a place called Newfound Gap, where I could get a lift into Gatlinburg. So I thought, rather than, and I knew it was a fairly easy 4.5 miles as well, mostly downhill. So what I decided to do was push on, not go to that shelter. So I did 18 miles on, I think that was Wednesday. I think today's Friday. Yeah, I think so. So I did a fairly big day and then got into town. And the plan was always to get into town for yesterday anyway, so we were going to do a Nero to get into town. So I thought it makes more sense to do a bigger day, get into town, have 2 good nights there, 2 days of decent food, decent sleep, a full day of rest, and then come back to the trail this morning, which is exactly what I've done. So here I am back on the trail. So I'm at something like mile, I don't know, 213, something like that, I would imagine. I have about another 5 or 6 miles to go to the first shelter option, which I may or may not take. I'll see how I feel when I get there. I've about another 25 miles left in the Smokies. And you may have noticed, it's very true about the unpredictable weather. We've had a thunderstorm day of downpours. We've had a messy day of mud and light rain. And we had a beautiful day on Wednesday. Yesterday, I believe, was very, very windy. There were wind alerts again for this morning, but it's actually not that bad. So it is supposed to brighten up a bit, but then there's more rain forecast for the next couple of days. So anyway, I've had a couple of questions, which I'm delighted that some of you have sent me questions. Quite a few of them, so I'll deal with 1 or 2 now. Very nice that someone's noticed that the parts of the trail I've shown you are litter free. Now, I was going to combine this with one of the other questions about the characters on the trail, but I won't. I'll try to separate the issues out. So on the subject of litter, the people on the trail treat the trail like it's sacred, and that's no exaggeration. They wouldn't dare drop the tiniest piece of litter here. You don't get cigarette butts, nothing. And it's really impressive considering the length of the trail and the number of people on it. So that's really, really good. So well spotted. Can't remember who that was, but absolutely no litter on the trail. They also practice a thing called leave no trace, which of course everybody should when they enter into any nature type area, where the idea is that you leave the place looking as if you were never there. And funny enough, a little tiny story related to that. Back at the I've still got dampers on the brain. Back at the dam called Fontana Dam, that shelter had a rock in it, just a random rock that someone had left in the shelter, and it was painted sort of like an adult version of what a kid would do with a rock, maybe paint a rainbow on it or something like that. And it wasn't much more than that kind of thing. Hang on. Need to open up a bit. And you think, yeah, okay, fair enough, it's kind of nice. But then you get so many comments saying, that's not observing leave no trace. You don't do stuff like that. Sounds a bit trivial, but it kind of explains where they're coming from. We just don't do that. You know, keep the trail looking exactly as it is, and exercise minimal impact or absolutely no impact, and leave no trace. So that was the litter issue. What was the other one? Shelter related question. Someone asked, it might have been Nikki. Hi Nikki. Are the shelters unisex? Well, interestingly, on the trail, gender is an absolute non-issue. There's no, how do I describe this? There's nothing flirtatious about anyone. The whole place is, it's almost like it's gender-free, asexual kind of strip of land running through America. So in the shelters, you could find yourself, you wake up in the morning, you've been cocooned in your sleeping bag, and you could have been sleeping in between a 70-year-old man and a 20-year-old girl. You just don't know. In fact, I've probably done that. I've certainly slept beside those two types of people. So you get all that kind of stuff. Obviously, if people need to change, you know, underwear or clothes that are next to skin, well, maybe not. It's not really that much of an issue for the men, but the women, certainly all the men, will turn away naturally, and you tend to do it almost in your sleeping bag anyway. So yes, it is as private as you need it to be, but it is 100% unisex. Gender is not an issue. You don't come to the Appalachian Trail looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's just not that kind of thing. So that was a good question. What else? Let me think. Connor, thanks for your question. That was a good one about the characters on the trail. So there's a big variety. Probably what the Irish people will be more interested in are the kind of characters that you're not going to see at home. And the most obvious character type that you're not going to see at home are all of the ex-military people. There's a lot of people who have had full careers in the military and are now retired and are doing this kind of thing. So there's two men, they're both 66. I think they're both ex-military. Their real names, funny enough, are Tom and Jerry. But their trail names are, I think it's Papia and Perdido. Whatever the Spanish is for lost, that's his trail name. I think it's Perdido. I'm paranoid about bears. We've been getting alerts that there's heightened bear activity in the area, and I keep seeing these dark shapes around me and hearing weird sounds, but so far I'm fine. So those two guys, certainly at least Jerry, extremely nice guy. I had a great laugh with him, just sort of bounced off him really well. But he retired from the military 6 years ago, I think he said 2013. So he had a full career in the army, and his kids are now in the army. And then you've also got the younger men who, signed up to do, their service. They volunteered and found themselves in varying types. Compton, for example, was an F-18 fighter jet mechanic, which is kind of interesting. So you have various things like that. You do meet the odd guy who is very, very quiet, and everyone can be whatever they want to be, where everyone respects that. And you can tell by their tattoos or whatever, they've come out of the army. They're still very young men. So they're probably dealing with God knows what. You just don't know what their eyes have seen over the last few years. So, we give them space, and they're probably using this experience to try to excuse me, a bit of a cold, to sort of probably straighten their heads out again. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, characters. So I've met all sorts. There's a young English girl. I think her name is Lucy. Then there's old men. I've met seriously old men, seriously old women. There's old couples that are doing sort of 5 or 6 miles a day. There's people in groups, people solo like me. It's very, very safe. And apart from bears, if they're around. But certainly in terms of the other humans, it's very, very safe. There's a great respect in all of the towns that we go through. They're very eager to give us lifts, etc. So there's an example. In terms of those people's stories, I don't really have any of those. If I get some that aren't too personal, I'll share them. So there are more questions, but I'll deal with them again. Catch you later. Here's a cool piece of ridge walking. Nice. Kind of windy. A lot of today has been on very exposed ridges like this. But because we've been up in the clouds, it's just dense cloud and fog. You're kind of unaware that this is actually behind you. Look at that. So because of the fog, I've been kind of missing these views all morning, but it is beautiful. So it's still day 20. I'm done for the day. It became a 15.7 mile day. This is Tri-Corner Knob Shelter or something it's called. It's okay, it's very like the others. That's the privy over there. You can see the bear bags hanging on the bear cables up there. It's not too busy here, although I suppose more people could show up yet. But give you an idea. Got the little food prep area under shelter. And the usual picnics. There you go.